I believe we need to tackle digital inclusion. The government could work on making internet access more affordable and reliable. We have issues with internet and with reliability in the rural areas in the north, east, and in the West Nile, because this would open up opportunities for more people and businesses.
Do you aspire for a booming middle-class economy? Listen along and understand what turns the wheels of Uganda's economy with our lineup of incredible influencers in their fields.
Dear Patriot, welcome yet to another episode of the podcast on Uganda. Today, we are pretty much excited to bring you another person who knows the tricks and trade when it comes to making brands stand out in the digital space. So joining us today is the one and only Kakoza Joseph. He is the communications and brand officer at CDO Digital Print. Welcome to the podcast. Welcome to the show, Joseph.
Thank you, Aggie.
Well, I love that you bring a range of expertise from internal communications and also external communications to social media marketing and SEO. If you were to describe your approach of brand management in just 3 words, what would they be?
If I was to share words effectively describe how best I manage brands, and they would include consistency.
Nice.
And with this, I mean, how do I present these brands on the various social media channels? How do I present these brands to the different publics that are out there? Because the way that you would present something to the LinkedIn group of people, the way you would present something to the X group of people, to the TikTok group of people, it all differs, and it all comes back to the consistency. When do you post, and how do you engage with your audience? My second would be authenticity, and with removing plagiarism or copying, saying that since I'm in the printing world, there is other competitors. Instead of copying them, do something unique, because people always look out for the unique aspect. What new thing are you bringing on table? And that is what would bring the client to come into your business.
Okay.
That is the authenticity and being true to yourself, not putting lies online that we do this, yet we don't do that. Then the engagement. Many people come online and take long to respond. I imagine if Agile Media would send me mail and I take days to respond to it. As a media person or a marketing person, I'd expect someone, if you really love business and you love communications and marketing and brand analysis, communication is key. Any engagement that comes through, kindly respond to it.
Love it. It sounds like a perfect recipe for brand success. So if we are to talk about strategy, right? You are in communications and a brand officer. With so many digital platforms that are out there today, how do you determine the best strategy for managing a brand's online presence?
We should define a clear brand identity. With CDO, that is a digital printing institution, it's one of the biggest printing institutions. One has to define the brand's core values. You have to define the mission and the voice. When someone is reading a post online, they should feel that CDO as an institution is talking. If MTN has put up a post, they should feel MTN is talking to them. My next would be having an engagement across multiple channels. Remember that we are feeding numerous people on the online field. I wouldn't wish for a digital marketeer to stick to one channel, saying that I'll be only on Facebook, or if I say only on Insta, because people may say Instagram is good for marketing. However, nowadays we have TikTok. At first, people used to despise TikTok and say TikTok is for people that are chilling. But right now, I see TikTok is booming, and it's the number one almost in marketing, as people are using videography to put out their messages. So while engaging on multiple channels, I would expect people to use Facebook, TikTok, X, have their own websites, email marketing, and traditional media. I'm talking about the newspapers. I'm talking about the television. The more you put out your message via those various channels, that is how you hit the top peak of your brand presence.
Along the way, I've noticed that some brands have their audiences on some platforms and not the others. So spreading your wings so thin can also lead to the fact that you talked about earlier, that marketers sort of forget their own channels but promote their brands. I would suggest that you focus on those platforms that actually have your audiences once you've really understood the persona. But Joseph, before we get into the good stuff, how did you get into marketing? Did you study marketing at university? Take us through your journey. Looks like you've been in marketing for close to 5 years now.
I wouldn't want to speak like these other people that say marketing, they started when they were young. No, 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 no. Let me start with my education. Joseph started, let me say, at the peak when I was starting right now to know what I wanted really to do in life was at university.
Yeah.
And I was doing a bachelor's in journalism and mass communication. I attained a first class degree. And while there, I learned a lot and went into associations. I became a deputy guild president. And part of the associations that I joined was the Public Relations Association of Uganda.
Yeah.
And with proud, I learned something that as a communicator, there is no way I can separate myself from marketing. There is no way a communicator can say, I do not market. At the end of the day, you are trying and pushing with the consistency and the various methods of seeing how best you can pull the customers into the company. You are doing marketing indirectly.
Yeah.
And that is why communicators are the masters of marketing. I realize that as I'm doing public relations, I'm also doing marketing. So there is no way that I can separate myself from marketing, from online presence, from graphic design. There is no way I can differentiate myself from branding. So from there, I was appointed to be on the governing council, or what other people would call the board of the Public Relations Association, and 19. Pushing forward, in 2020, 2021, I graduated. And because right now, as a young man, I was at the peak of public relations and marketing, I'm so lucky that I've not applied for any job. I finished university.
Okay.
I was handpicked by the Uganda Funeral Services, become a public relations officer while there.
Yeah, must be
This was
one.
must be a good one.
Must be a tough one. People relate funerals to sadness. So now you're trying to tell a story for this brand.
The day I got a letter that, Joseph, can you come and be our public relations officer? And how do we brand ourselves to see that we are handpicked by institutions? We do our best for the institutions we are in.
Wait a minute. Do you know what it will take for Uganda to achieve a middle-class economy by 2040? Please send us an email at onuganda@gmail.com.
That the people in the private sector can say, oh, Joseph is good at this, and you become like a football player. Scouts come and pick you up and say, Joseph, you're good here, come. And they give you a fat paycheck.
So what do you take pride in that brands are seeking you for?
My uniqueness in marketing. Most employers want a one-stop center. For example, if they hire a Joseph, they would wish to see a Joseph that can do graphics, a Joseph that can do marketing, a Joseph that can protect the brand via public relations. They want someone that they can rely on for information.
Yeah.
And that is how I have equipped myself. I do a lot of research before I tackle something. I use AI, for example, to back me up and expound on my knowledge. Because right now, that's the way to go. And I've used AI even before it became so popular. I am sure by 20, many people are not using AI, but as among the people using AI.
People were using AI back then, but they didn't know they were using AI. So most of the marketing tools had AI embedded in them. For example, Grammarly, even LinkedIn itself had an AI aspect to it, where it had to edit your text before you actually posted. Yeah, but people didn't realize it was AI, but it was.
Since you are in the same field, maybe you are exposed, but many people are not exposed. So I've leveraged those opportunities.
Yeah.
So back to Uganda, joining the funeral industry, for example, Uganda Funeral Service, I believe I was the first person to start the journey of digitalizing the funeral service industry.
Yeah, like live streaming. We have a lot of funerals now that show live ceremonies.
Yes, and as I would wish you go back to when we lost our founder, Mama Regina, you will see that the video that Mike made was so shoddy. I want you to go check on other funeral institutions that before the 2019-2020 pandemic, they were not doing online videos. They were not doing YouTube streamings for funerals. And I'm so happy that I brought it on board. I started putting in all that I had learned about YouTube to see that we can stream such a burial for people that had not come, because thousands of people came for that burial and many people wanted to see it. TV stations were there, and I was like, if the TV stations can do it, how about us? And I pushed for that YouTube, which started around that same time in 2019. And while there, I pushed for their brand, market wise, and that's why I said there is no you can differentiate yourself as a communicator from marketing. I pushed for their brand to see to it that apart from the sadness, I make sure people remember the day they lost their dear ones and call them for prayers. Because that institution, Uganda Funeral Services, has daily masses for the people they have buried on that same day, whatever the year is. Yeah. So I'd make sure that I use the online platform to remind people. This is via email marketing. And while at Uganda Funeral Services, I used the various social media pages to announce, for example, if you lost someone special, sending condolence messages, and making funeral service not only a sad place, because associated to being sad, to making it a place where someone comes to relax. Yeah. Instead of coming to the page to see sad news, you come to the page for updates. Yeah.
That's true.
Then my contract, I have this habit that I work for contract. My contract ended, my 1.5 year contract. And there is an institution I don't put on my social media channels, but it is a big institution. It's called eHoney Marketing. It's a marketing agency.
Okay.
I go there and I had to work there for 6 months. My idea of going to eHoney wasn't to work, it was to learn more. Because imagine you're in a marketing agency. You learn so much about marketing. You learn so much about graphics. You learn a lot about copywriting. You learn a lot about branding and design. So becoming a top center for marketing was always my dream.
Yeah.
If I mix it, the public relations and all the skills that I had attained while I was with other institutions. Well, when my contract of 6 ended, I decided to start my own digital marketing company, which is fully registered, the Digital Marketing Umbrella. And the Digital Marketing Umbrella is one of the reasons why I get handpicked by business owners and I don't apply for jobs. First work for them as someone managing social media pages. Then at the end of the day, they feel it is not enough and they bring me on table to be full-time person. I've loved the experience because even though the contract is done, I usually tell them my contract is done, let me go to the next station. Because it is about building me. I use that time after my contract to build my own personal brand.
Yeah.
I have someone that I worked with at eHoney. She's called Victoria Nyanze. I'm sure you see her so much on LinkedIn.
Yes, we need to get her on the podcast.
Learned a lot from Victoria, and trust me, at this new workstation, she taught me a lot about branding, a lot about social media management, a lot about search engine optimization. Someone that was from journalism and mass communication, I started doing some IT-related things.
Yeah.
And that's how we get the jobs that we desire.
That's ambitious. I mean, you're young, you seem to know what you want, and it seems like nothing is going to stop you. So why not? Why not go for it?
Nothing.
Yeah.
And when I saw the invite to Ajay
Yeah.
to own the Own Uganda podcast,
Yeah.
I see these are more steps for me to be up there.
Yeah.
I can never turn them down. I
No.
would I would be learning more.
Yeah, no, we're
Yeah.
happy. We're happy to have you. And now that you said you started a digital marketing umbrella, that's quite interesting because I feel like SEO is also a gift that keeps on giving if it's done right. And since you've already got experience in social media marketing, with so much content being created every single day, how do you feel brands should really cut through the noise?
So as a digital marketing umbrella, different institutions have different needs.
Yeah.
Let me talk about Uganda Funeral Service.
Okay.
Digitally, they didn't have a name or a proper sounding name or a proper image before me, and I can prove it. And that is why they were giving me a good pay.
Okay.
Their problem wasn't they were not getting market. They were getting clients day in, day out. However, having a proper social media page, having proper communications, having proper public relations embedded through the digital market creates that trustworthiness between you, the brand or the brand owner, to the client. Yeah. So that question seems actually wide because each brand has a different need. You may reach and the brand has a logo problem. And the moment a brand has a logo problem, to the branding, to everything, you get what I mean? That is why before 2020, Uganda Funeral Services was Uganda Funeral Services. After me, the name changed. It is now UFS
My dad passed
because
away in 2003, and my mom used Uganda's funeral service. So it's very close to home in that sense.
many people are getting to know it as UFS. The word funeral, there's a way it hits, eh? And it makes it have a sad feeling.
Yeah,
But when you say UFS, there's a way it comes down until when you see what is embedded in the UFS. Sorry about the loss, by the way.
it's a long time ago. But I must admit that the funerals today are much more accessible and inclusive because, yeah, people are watching them from abroad. People are able to, just follow the program because the screens are showing and there's like captions. So it's quite nice. It's quite nice dying these days, if that's a thing.
You had a question about how the brands grow with the digital marketing umbrella. And my answer is all brands have different needs. And that is why before I start asking for a penny from any client, I first settle down to understand their business
Yeah.
so that I become like a doctor and tap of where the problem is. However, while I'm working for other institutions where I have a contract, I make sure I don't interfere with their businesses and I don't get any other clients, and I focus on that client for the specific time given. So after Ihani, I was back on MAP and I was called by Multiplex Group of Companies, the one that tows your cars.
The one on the streets that gives you the parking tickets.
Yeah, that is Multiplex Group of Companies. However, in Multiplex Group of Companies, we have digital printing solution. Joining the printing industry with one of the best. CDO has the only digital machine in the country.
So CDO Digital Solutions is the same as CDO Digital Print?
Yeah,
Okay.
it is the same as CDO Press. It is the same as digital print. It has had a change of name and it is legal via the change of time, but the name CDO remains the same. Yeah. Why did I join CDO? I joined CDO because I felt with this exposure in media, someone should know a lot about traditional media. And what is traditional media? It is printing. And more about printing, we have the branding. So this is an institution that prints labels, security features, for example, certificates for institutions, This is an institution that prints anything that needs print as long as you need uniqueness. Yeah?
Yeah.
You need security. For example, universities can bring their transcripts because of the unique security features. Let me also say, for example, we may be printing the birth certificates to Uganda or having partnerships with the Uganda security printing, having partnerships with NIRA, and so that we can do security printing, doing high quality labels for high institutions. For example, each institution has a different kind of paper. In the printing industry, you fall into an institution, for example, KFC, you feel their receipts have a different feel, you feel their flyers have a different feel, you feel their brochures have a different feel, anything related to them. So one of the key things that I managed to attain while there is having a strong partnership with KFC. I import specifically for KFC so that we can be printing for them. And it was a good deal. They accepted. And well, as a printing person in the marketing sector, I would say it is not easy to market printing because a lot of nowadays are online. Each industry I go to, I learn a lot.
Yeah, you talk about so many things, which I feel like our audiences need to know. And you make such valid points with branding. And I wonder if creating a connection with your audiences, because if the branding team is not aligned with the printing team, they probably wouldn't get what you know of the client, who is KFC or government. So when it comes to
Okay.
communications, both internally and externally, what's the secret of keeping everyone aligned on the same page?
For example, I have been a communications and brand officer.
Mm-hmm.
However, it doesn't limit me to CDO only
Okay.
because it will never bring money to the table if I'm working as a communications and brand for CDO only. It has to push me as a marketeer at the end of the day or a communications person to become a brand person to the client out there. For example, I go to Uganda and I look at their label, self-adhesive, some quality, and I say, for example, you have Christmas coming at the end of the corner, or we have African month coming around. Why don't we change your branding of Uganda Waraj and put in those designs? I hope you have seen the designs of Uganda Waraj having drums and African nature.
At the festivals or
That is branding. I go into that and say, we can do something different. These bosses out there want to see what different aspect can you put on table. Everyone can come and say, we can print. However, talk about the branding. We can build your brand and you get that extra penny. If someone holds a bottle that is having that unique touch, a unique feeling, for example, you get a coconut with coconuts all over and you are seeing it is shiny and has quality, you'd fall in love with the bottle at the end of the day.
yeah.
Let me give an example of Movit. We have grown with Movit, we have grown with New Vision, and you see the quality of magazines that are put on table. I take this all back to branding. Market what your client needs, understand their business, then look at the loophole. How best can you benefit their business? You see a need, and then you put an implementation to it.
Hopefully that everybody then is aligned on the vision, on the goal, because if there are different departments in an organization, it would be nice for all of them to speak off of the same hymn sheets that you're talking about. For example, them understanding the brand, the different peppers that the different clients have, for them to be able to speak the same language that they understand. I'm wondering what you think the challenges are, or even just call them opportunities in doing marketing or PR in Uganda, that if someone is listening in today, if they were in school and they're about to finish, probably just like you did, journalism and mass communication, what should they know of the opportunities? If there's an investor where the challenges that investment is needed, that they could invest and also benefit in this industry?
Oh, tough question.
This is what you
I
do.
love marketing. When you love something, it's hard for you to see challenges because I'm always on what is hard. For example, right now I'm going into the cosmetic industry and so excited. Whenever I'm changing an industry as a marketeer, the goals whenever I'm going into an institution is to see.
Yeah.
And when I speak on the street that, do you know this company? And someone says, yes, they do this. That is my dream. However, I've been asked a question about challenges in doing marketing in Uganda. In some areas, there is limited digital access.
Yeah.
And the second one, I would say there is a high cost of advertising. If I am to see the amount of money I put into my personal advertising,
Yeah.
I may put out a few posts of myself. However, I advertise them. That's the difference between me and other marketeers. And for example, if I want to advertise, let me say in traditional media, like in TVs and radio, it is also so expensive to get prime time. So that is a challenge in marketing. So infrastructure challenge.
And there comes digital, where you can buy ads cheaply and get the same mileage that the traditional media.
Month on average, personally, as per my analytics, I spend an average of $120,
On
which is so high.
compared to the traditional one, it's way cheaper than advertising on radio and television. And
Yeah, it is way cheaper, obviously. There, whatever that I'm saying has advantages and disadvantages if you start scrutinizing each.
yeah,
Because I started with limited digital access. Some people here in Kampala may have it, but people in the north, people in the west, east may not have it. The second was high cost of advertising, the infrastructure challenges in the other parts of the country, poor infrastructure, like our unreliable electricity, our internet. They had to subscribe to MTN, yet I'm a fan of Airtel because I know MTN is stable. MTN is stable.
who are sort of on the same level.
They are not. MTN is stable, and I feel MTN is cheaper at some extent. However, I use Airtel because I get a variety of bundles that can push me for 3 days. For example, when you're marketing for a brand, you should know who are your clients, who are you selling to. You will not start selling something that is high end to the clients of the low end. There are people that I know cannot go to Chinatown. Yeah. However, Chinatown did its marketing research and they knew the only way to make themselves famous and known was to reduce prices, and that is knowing their market, which is that middle class. However, there are high-end people that cannot go to Chinatown. So knowing your client, and that is with a diverse customer base. Another challenge that I see in marketing is counterfeit of products. Many people want to be the best. However, they don't understand that you should make your brand unique so that you are known by your uniqueness. If you are to see how Movit and Samona have been moving throughout the year, see that one of them has turned out to be weaker because they tried to counterfeit their product to appear similar to the other. And whenever you copy, you crash. So have that unique factor in you as a marketer.
Speaking of unique, you talked about some interesting campaigns. What kind of campaigns have you noticed along the way that were really resonating with you, that have stayed with you?
I started this campaign of the condom. If you are familiar with the World AIDS Day, where institutions put their logos on condoms. Have you seen something like that?
It doesn't sound familiar.
I started that campaign as a joke. My bosses put me in the boardroom and were like, Joseph, why did you put that there? And I apologized and I removed it, not knowing people had already seen the post, downloaded the post, and started sharing the post. And that was Uganda Funeral Services. And my message was, Uganda Funeral Services wishes you a happy World AIDS Day. Yambala kapira. Yeah.
Yeah.
So going online, I see everyone has taken up the trend. So instead of my bosses harassing me, actually I got praise from them. And that is one trend that I have done. And I wish to do one other trend in my life to see that I put it at that level. That trend started in 2022. I don't know how best people can get an image about it. I know our listeners, that class of people that will do research about something.
Joseph, thank you so much for making time. We have a very last question we ask most of the guests that come onto the podcast. Are you ready, Joseph? What will it take for Uganda to achieve a middle-class economy by 2040?
Well, first, I believe we need to tackle digital inclusion. Yeah. The government could work on making internet access more affordable and reliable. As I said, we have issues with internet and with reliability in the rural areas in the north, east, and in the West Nile, because this would open up opportunities for more people and businesses. Another area that we need to be supporting is local businesses by offering incentives for digital transformation, and is whether through grants, tax incentives, or training programs. Lastly, I would recommend we strengthen intellectual property laws in communication. Creativity is key, and we need laws that protect our content and innovation, because we are all around the copyright law, but people don't understand it and they don't know how best they are to benefit from it.
Those are great points. And I like that you rally them around communications and marketing. Like you rightly said, a lot of people don't understand what IP is. But if we have these laws and incentives as well, if we have things like Facebook being opened up, especially for you guys that operate in social media and digital, we would be more accessible to people who probably choose Facebook than other platforms. Thank you so much, Joseph. Thank you so much for making time. Until next time, have a lovely week.
Thank you so much.
Thank you for listening in this far. I really hope that this conversation was helpful to you. Share this episode with your colleagues or friends that you think will benefit from this information. Let them know what you're listening to. Would you also rate our podcast? Because once you rate our podcast, other people like you are able to listen to this information and use it to their own benefit. On a lighter note, follow us on TikTok and Instagram. We really would love to hear your